Well, welcome to Let Us Reason Together. I'm today's host, Sandi Craig, and we are so glad that you are joining us. I think we're going to have a good show and a lot of information out there for you, news and Torah and Brit Hadashah, the Bible. You know what? It's all good, and we get to come together on this Monday morning and discuss it. And we want to see your comments, so you can join us in the chat room too. If you would like, you can do that through YouTube or Facebook, but you can watch this show a lot of other ways. And if you're watching it in the archives, well, that's good too, because there's a lot that God wants to say, and we're going to get to it. Well, what is today? Today is July 6th. Can you believe it? July 6th already. Whew, how time passes. But hallelujah, it's a beautiful day here in Amarillo, Texas, and that's where I am broadcasting from. Last week at this time, I was in Norfolk, Nebraska, but today I am in Texas. Yeah, I was born in Norfolk, Nebraska, lived there for 5 years and got to Texas as quickly as I could. Yeah, some of you may not like that, but that's what I did. Anyway, so let's see what else. My husband and I, we pastor a congregation. We co-pastor a congregation, Life of Worship, right here in Amarillo, Texas, and it's just an amazing time. And you can join us for our Torah portions, although our Torah portion times seem to be changing. But right now they're at 2 p.m. Central, and you can join us on Zoom, or our main service, which is at 5 p.m. Central, and that is on YouTube Live. And you know what? We just love to have you there. And you can also go to our YouTube channel, Life of Worship Amarillo, skip the O, and subscribe and ding the bell so that you will be notified every time we come together. And that's good. And anyway, we'd love to have you. We also have Sukkot coming up, which is Clear Vision 2020, Yeshua the Waymaker. And that is going to be at Paladura Lake here in the Panhandle of Texas, close to Spearman, Texas. It is going to be so packed. We're going to have, of course, great teaching and speakers and a talent show, and we'll have a mikvah and maybe a renewal. We'll have kids programs and youth programs and time of fellowship and so much more. You can go to our www.lifeofworshipamarillo.org, and on that you can click on the registration and register with us. We would love to have you. Now, I will tell you to note, for some reason, the page on there is not loading the correct days of the week that Sukkot is. It will be Friday, October 2nd through Saturday, October 10th. So those are the days, and we would love to have you. So also just drop me an email if you want to know more about it, or let me know and I can send you the information. Anyway, we do a few other things too. We host the Monday Morning War Room, which was just on, as well as Tuesday evening, 8 p.m. Central, Walking in Spirit and Truth. And we would love to have you there. And then I'm on the next chapter on Thursday mornings at 8:45 Central. And of course, that's a great time to be with us too. So in fact, I've told you before, just stay tuned to this network all day long, because guess what? You're going to get a good information. You're going to be encouraged, and your day will be set straight. But that's enough of me. It's way more of me than you need to hear, right? I am here with Mr. Mark David Smith. He is the founder, the host, the visionary. He's on lots of stuff. He's the one that keeps the ball rolling. He keeps me in line, and he is right here. Hello, Mark, and thank you.
You're welcome. There's never enough of you, Sandi. Come on. So let's see. Maybe you got that from our conversation we had before we came on. No.
I did think you said that.
No. But I sure have an awful lot. Makes me look bald up here. See, there's hair up there. See, but there we go. How about that? We'll fluff that up. I actually have a filter on that light, but I don't know. I don't have my green screen on because it's hard to make the lights. So anyway, it's really good to have you back, Sandi. But since we haven't done a show since you left, it's good to have both of us back, I guess. So,
That's right.
yeah.
That's exactly right. We're a great team. Always have been and always will be.
That's right. That's good. We've only done 1,227 shows
Exactly.
together, and we'll do another 1,227 shows. So I'm gonna play here. So I'm just playing. There we go. See if that
Adjusting. Well, I was hoping that you might have a little grandchild just run in front.
Oh, I could do that, but it's okay. We'll not do that. How about that? That might be a little better. At least it lets me look like I have hair on the top of my head.
Well, Mark, I'm married to someone who has 3 or 4 hairs total on top of his head.
I know. And that's another reason that I want to be sure the lighting shows I have hair there. I don't want people thinking I'm John Craig. So that would be the only reason, is because, there's that bald guy again.
Yeah, see, that's a new saying, Gone Craig. Now we know that means you're bald on top with 3 or 4 hairs sticking up. That's a new one. You need to coin that, Mark.
No,
Gone Craig.
Not gonna do it. Not gonna happen.
Not gonna do it. Okay. Well, do you want to know what today is?
Today, you just told everybody. Oh no! Oh,
see, there's one right there.
Man.
I heard something about Gone Craig. What?
No. Oh man, I am so embarrassed. We were talking about you, and you were right there. Oh man. All right, I'll put the light on back over my head so it looks like I'm bald.
You know what? You're not embarrassed. You guys are friends, and that's how you make it.
But there's a Black Panther behind you.
I know. No, it's a raccoon, Mark.
No, it's a Black Panther.
Oh, okay.
Sandy, have you ever seen a black raccoon? Come on.
Well, I just thought you'd referenced her as a raccoon before, so I don't know.
Here, I need to know this. Was John sitting there when you and I were talking about the show before the show?
No.
Okay, because now, you got me all wondering what in the world he has heard us talk about.
He hasn't heard anything. Trust me. He was out just taking care of the last few minute things outside.
Okay.
I know nothing.
Yeah, right. Well, you see, I like to talk about people behind their backs. And so when I find out that they're actually were there and I didn't know about it, it's really offensive to me. See, so because I just, if I'm going to talk about somebody behind their backs and I don't want them to know that I'm talking about them, I don't want them anywhere around. Okay. Thus you have behind their backs. See? So John, next time, if you just turn around, okay, at least, and then so now there we go. Now I can talk about him and feel safe. Everybody, that's how it works. Okay. If you want to talk about you can do it. I mean, there's nothing wrong with talking about people behind their backs. Just be sure they turn around first.
There you go. Everybody, you heard it from here. That's how things work. You just need to know. Sure. And by the way, this station does not endorse Lashon Hara in any form or fashion.
Oh.
Okay, we're already having fun.
Yeah, sure, of course.
We're already having fun.
That's right.
Yeah. So, wow. I'm looking at my show outline and some of my things are gone. I must not have saved it. Whoops.
Let's see. Well, Control X is what you want to do.
I do know. I had a couple good days.
Control Z. That's what it is.
Control Z. Well,
I'll get them back for you.
I do remember. today is July 7th is Tell the Truth Day.
Okay. Did you use Control Z on your brain? Is
No,
that what
because
happened?
this would have happened last night when I was preparing it for the show. It's long gone. And not only is this July 7th, not only here on July 6th do we need to we should always just tell the truth. We should, I guess. I don't know.
Really?
I don't know. All my stuff is gone, so we're just gonna say we're gonna make some things up because I don't have time to figure it out. What should today be? What should we proclaim this day as?
We could proclaim it as July 7th.
Well, but it's actually July 6th, so but we can say July 7th is coming. I'm sorry. Mark, you're going to have to take over for just a second.
Okay, well, let's see. What was it? Oh, I was just thinking about something. But now, it's just like, you can, by the way, you can lie all you want. It's okay to lie, just so long as somebody doesn't find out. If you're lying about somebody, make sure they don't find out about it. And then everything's okay. Then you don't have to be worried about it. But if they find out, then you get all offended and everything. So just thought I would add that in there and make sure. Are you okay? You don't have the CV, do you?
All right. So that's what you want to talk about. You're going to bring that up. I am not happy now.
Well, let's put it this way. Ever since I saw the Trump rally in Tulsa, the video of that, Trump doesn't call it COVID-19 or coronavirus. He calls it the CV, and CV stands for the China virus.
Good for him.
I know. I think I like that now. So I've stopped calling it everything else, and I'll just call it the CV. Then people say, "Oh, you mean coronavirus?" I said, "No, the China virus." Because that's what it is. So.
Well, I am not happy because the governor of this conservative state of Texas.
Good, cool. Let's talk about that.
You know what he did? He on the CV virus, he drank the Kool-Aid or something because when I was traveling to Nebraska, Kansas was pretty close, by the way. I was like, oh my goodness. And I was like, whoo, I'm from the state of Texas. We have a little bit more sense than this because Kansas was so closed down. And then I got to Nebraska and it was a little bit better than Kansas. And then I come home, or no, I get a message from my son and he says, Mom, our Governor Abbott's going to make us start wearing masks because there's a spike. Well, if you're going to test everybody and their dog, there's going to be a spike of false positives. And of course, then they do the multiplication factor of 16 because they ask you, who do you know? And then they put down that everybody has the CV virus that you gave them, even though they don't test them. Anyway, their multiplication factor is such a joke. People, this is a joke. Anyway, so I come home and I find that my state's being stupid, that our governor is making us wear masks. Well, let me tell you what my husband did. Where's your mask? Oh, yeah, his mask isn't here. So go get your mask. Real quick. You go get your mask. I want you to demonstrate how we're going to wear our mask because people, we don't need to wear masks. It is like use it. It is, even doctors and nurses will tell you that there is in no way that a virus cannot be blocked out by those masks. And even surgical masks are meant to be worn for 30 minutes.
Go. Keep going.
So you're going to get yours. So they're meant and then changed out. And it doesn't prevent anything from coming out. It might prevent particles from coming in, but nothing from coming out. And then on top of that, OSHA has brought out a report that says cloth masks are terrible. Remember, when you breathe out, you're removing waste from your body, and mold and other things build up in the cloth mask. They do more harm than good. They lower your immune system when you wear a mask because you need to be out there breathing fresh air. You need to be breathing. Masks do nothing. John has a saying, and when he comes in here, I'm going to have him say it. Guys, do not drink the Kool-Aid. Wearing a mask is stupid, dumb, and it's harmful to you. Okay, here we go. Hold on. You got to.
Hi.
I wear my mask too.
Look at this.
What?
Look at
Hey,
this.
yeah, my mask on too. Yeah, that's a good one, John. I like it. Yeah.
So, you know what he did yesterday? Because it's mandated in the state of Texas, you wear them everywhere right now because of the spike. Wait. I want you to
Wait. No, he can't go. He needs to come back. We got to talk.
What is it that you say? Wearing a mask is like
It's like putting up a chain link fence around your yard to keep the mosquitoes out.
I get it. I'm with you.
I mean, that's so whatever this, the little micro fragments of this thing that they call CV.
TV. Yeah.
Yeah. So this isn't going to help me. This is called virtue signaling. Virtue.
What does
signaling.
that mean?
It means I'm a good person. I'm not intending to infect you. It means look how good of a person I am because I'm thinking about your best interests.
Of course. Yeah, that's right.
That's what this means because it has no
value.
It has no science to it. It has nothing. The only thing it's going to do is collect your spittle so that it can breed and incubate particles, and disease, and bacteria that you can breathe back in. Yeah.
Even doctors and nurses have given reports. The masks do nothing. Yet what do we see? It's a social test to see if everybody will comply and who are those that won't comply. So who are those that we need to remove from society? Guys,
it's a slippery slope because the next thing will be well, if you don't want to wear a mask anymore, then you're going to need to get the vaccine, and then you're going to get the vaccine. You can participate in society, and you can participate with your own bank account, and all that. And
there was a question posed on one interview show. Somebody from our congregation brought it up, and the question was posed: should we cover people's hair, facial and hair? So should we start requiring people to cover their hair because of CV? Now, what does this symbolize? Now, imagine my hair covered.
Okay.
What does this look like? Okay, and I have a black all around me. What does that look like?
Sharia.
Yeah, it looks like a burqa.
My Sharia.
Okay. Okay. Now,
Knack, man.
I need from now on. I need both of you guys to take Wednesdays off so you can come on my Constitution show because we're refining these things and let's understand these things because when I got my email from my representative, which I get every day, and he keeps us updated on everything like that, and they used the paragraph and told us about the governor mandating, the governor requiring, and then the governor gives an executive order. Okay. Now I have to tell you, I personally don't understand what it means by the governor's executive order. Okay. What does this mean? Because I know that, yes, we have constitutional law and yes, we have state laws, but can the governor make a law? Absolutely not. He can get an executive order. He can give an executive order, but it is like the first two words. He mandates it, which just means that it's a huge suggestion and it's a requirement, meaning it's just a huge suggestion, but it cannot be enforced by law enforcement agencies because it is not a law whatsoever at all. There is a very formal process, even in the states, each individual state, that if you want to make a state law, there's a very formal process you have to go through to get all that done. And just because the president has declared an emergency in the United States, which there has, and rightfully so, I get that. But because the United States is full of fear, you need to have an emergency executive order there. But the governor's executive order is not law. So
they're going to fine you $250 every time they catch you without one.
Yeah.
well, you can go to court and fight that, and they can't uphold that, from what I understand.
Yeah.
Not in the state of North Carolina, but the key to who's gonna arrest you, by the way, because it's not a law.
Well, they're going to write a ticket. It's basically what it is. They're going to write a ticket in Texas for not wearing a mask, just like they would for not wearing a seatbelt.
It demonstrates your other mask wearing.
Oh yeah,
But
you have to have a mask to go into a store. So I went in like that one time.
your other thing, which is totally enforceable, is the fact that all businesses have the right to refuse service to anyone they want without a reason. So if you go in and they require you to wear a mask, they can refuse that service. What can't be done is a person shopping in that business telling you that it's a law, you have to have that mask on. You're offending me, you got to have it. They can't do that. It doesn't work that way. And so this is what I found out. This is my research on this. This is something we covered in, and I do have up on the website, I have a new segment from that show that talks about government executive orders. Anything I've missed on that, John, about governor executive orders? I mean, writing a ticket is a local thing that can be dismissed by the court. Okay. And so, and you know, too, if you look at that executive order, it also has what I want to say. There's things in there, stipulations about if you can't be 6 feet apart, if you can't do social distancing. It doesn't mean that you have to wear that mask. It's only in situations where you can't be social distancing. And most of the people that aren't social distancing are the people wearing masks, which they should anyway. So yeah.
You know, what I think is also noted is that right now in the state of Texas, you know, our state legislature only meets every 2 years. Well, this is an off year. But I really think that our state representatives and state senators need to be in on it, because this mandate goes beyond what science is. It goes beyond the facts. It's simply to control. It's a psychological operation that's taken us down this road. And I really believe that our state representatives need to get an earful, so that if they have to have an emergency meeting, they can do that. They can call an emergency session to bring this before the state, because one, like you said, we can probably fight that $250 in court, but it takes money. It takes money to fight the 250. Right. So, so unless you're able to go and represent yourself with some type of success, then, you know, could be.
It's a vicious circle. It's called the circle of life.
Yeah. Right. And so contacting our state representatives, and in fact, I'm going to contact John Smithy, who is ours, today, and give him an earful. And let him know that he needs to put his influence. He's been in there for such a long time. He should have some type of influence in the state legislature, and some pressure on the governor to say, governor, to back off the $250 and
back
all
off
that
the
stuff.
mask thing, and put some read the science on the mask,
and stop this excess counting that's causing the numbers to inflate when there's not. You know, if you actually take the real numbers and divide it by the 16, they multiply, like one day. You took that 1 day count, it was only maybe 380 new cases, which means it's flat. The scale is flat. It means that there's really no increases and that there's really nothing there. And it's also showing that there's not an increase of death rate either. So therefore, this virus is practically harmless, except for those that have the morbidity issues, the elderly, those people that have a compromised immune system, just like the annual flu
or the cold,
and so.
But even that, most of these cases, people are at home and it's mild. It's nothing. It's like cold. It's the flu. Now, yeah, some are affected, but People
There's
need to remember that
no
government
fear.
is supposed to be of the people, by the people, and for the people. So if all the people, the majority of people in your state that are contacting you are saying, stop doing this, shouldn't you do by the people?
Yeah, Governor Abbott, you represent us, and you're not representing us right now. And, that's how we need to look at it.
And since we're already using time, we're going to do things topsy-turvy, because I want this to go into my article today. What I was going to talk about was how now they're taking it so far as California says, no more worship, no more singing in churches or in congregations. Come on. See how far they're pushing it? And we've always known that there's persecution. I didn't want you to leave on this. I wanted you to stay. That's why I brought you in.
Oh, sorry.
Since you were here, I was bringing that out so you
All
would
right.
stay for just a minute or two.
My legs are getting...
Besides, it is your show, so stay on your show for a minute or two. Mark, wear your mask. It's mandated. Everybody wear a mask on.
But if you're preaching or broadcasting, you don't have to wear a mask.
Can't see you.
I know, but my legs are sore.
Here, you take this, and I'll stand.
No, you're fine.
By the way, I'm not really giving anybody the finger. I just don't have an index finger to hold my mask.
But think about this, guys. We've always known there's going to be persecution for believers. It says that there will be in the end days. But Governor Gavin Newsom ordered churches not to sing and worship. And is there anything worse you could do? Because that gives glory to him. That's how Yah's enthroned. And we've got to wake up to the sad truth that California has declared war basically on the church, on those that are called themselves believers, because they've been aggressively oppressing Christians in California long before the COVID thing came out. But what happens in California has this tendency to leak and spread throughout the country. It's like a disease, guys. So we're supposed to obey what the word says and not what man says. But California is really trying to turn everything against those that believe. And that really goes against, or saying that California is trying to expose and silence those with a voice of truth, those that will speak up and to the truth of what's going on, that won't fall in line with the system, that won't just comply with everything, like that be a zombie, that they're beyond zombies, that you're going to find those people who aren't going to be zombies to what the world says in congregations, in churches. So California Governor Gavin Newsom, when he outlined the guidelines of no worship, no singing, no chanting, whatever, because of CV, guys, again, if people don't react to this, more rights are being taken every day away from you, and you'll be limited to doing nothing. This country will be worse than any country we've ever imagined, because we just sit there and I'll put on my mask without saying a word. Okay, I'll stop singing. Okay, I'll stop gathering. You do that, you've lost everything.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? It really has to do with this, if you want to boil it down to, look at the laws and the direction that they've come from the governors, from the CDC, from the WHO, all those edicts. And you look at it, they're taking away everything that actually builds the immune system, bolsters the immune system. They talk nothing about taking zinc, vitamin D3, vitamin K2, vitamin C. They talk nothing about natural remedies to bolster the immune system. So you can really see that. But what they want to do is they want to push the remdesivir, which costs $4,500 for a prescription on that, as opposed to hydroxychloroquine, which is like pennies on the dollar for a round of that actually has been proven to destroy the CV along with zinc. And remdesivir has a very small, like 8% success rate. I mean, it's very, very low, very, very expensive. But nevertheless, and it's an AIDS drug. The other thing is that they don't want you going to the beach. They don't want you to gather in the parks. They don't want you to go anywhere where you're going to get sunlight, get fresh air, because that bolsters the immune system. So you take it back to Sandy's article there. And what is one of the things that bolsters one's immune system? It's when you come and you gather in worship. And when you sing, it brings in the presence of God. And in his presence, it pushes out, literally, it bolsters your immune system. It causes, people can be healed just in the middle of a worship service.
We've had people healed during worship. You know how powerful worship is, Mark. You understand, get it. To silence that.
Go in public and say you hear the voice of God. What do people think of you?
You're crazy.
Yeah, that's exactly right. You're crazy. So why should it be any different that when you're praising God, you're talking to God, and you're saying you're hearing from God? You're crazy. So why should they even acknowledge any of that at all? I mean, it literally, the world has already deemed us crazy anyway, so we don't have a voice. We have nothing to say. It makes no difference. We are not a valuable asset to this country as far as they're concerned. We used to be, but we are no longer, because the people that are voted in are not voted in based on the fact that they are they hear from God. It's all there is to it.
Well, and you have to understand that in this whole process of the CV, it's really related to a Luciferian agenda.
Sure.
Because the whole point is it's about control. It's about controlling the masses. It's about the establishment of a one world system that controls all of the nations of the world. One size fits all. And it's about silencing all other voices so that there's only one voice that can be heard, and that's their voice. That's that Luciferian voice that's being echoed in the world. And so what is one of the biggest voices that counteracts that? Well, it's those of believers, those who will speak forth the truth, those that will sing the words of truth, because there is power in the unison of our voices, which is actually taken in many of the worship songs, is the word of God being spoken back to him. He's given us his word, and those are put into songs that we're singing back to him. And so that is really powerful, because his word does not return to him void. And when it does not return to him void, it means that there is it's a continuous cycle. It's a cycle. That's what in the Hebraic heritage of our faith is about these cycles of things. And it is restoring his word into the earth, which was his voice that went forth in Genesis chapter 1 that took,
he sung,
which caused, which brought order out of chaos. And see, they want to bring their order out of chaos. They want to bring in their agenda, and chaos. So they create the chaos so that it is only their voice that people are going to be listening to, and that's the silencing of our voices within our congregations is the very goal. And so, all the more reason, I do not bow to Caesar. I will not bow to Caesar when it conflicts with the word of God.
No, and that Dina Dye, I need to do something on that. Dina Dye was telling us we are never supposed to, we've misunderstood what it means to give unto Caesar what belongs to Caesar. And I'll have to do a teaching on that, maybe on walking one of these days.
Sure.
But we have misunderstood that has been utilized to give the excuses. Well, we need to obey the government.
The Romans 13 thing where you got to obey the government. That's being a good believer, is you obey the government. No, that's not what that word says. It's not what that Paul was talking about there.
But that's a whole nother.
Yeah, that's a whole nother subject.
Interesting. It all comes around. My biggest fear, I think, is that they're going to stop wrestling, because there is a lot of interaction in wrestling and everything, and
man, there's
we just don't want wrestling to stop. At all.
It's not, there's all.
What I still don't understand. I know you guys are making, I agree. That's funny.
But no,
literally,
it's the point. It's the point that he's making is this is how ridiculous.
But isn't it ridiculous that it is okay to riot in great numbers, be close, you can do whatever you want, but it's not okay to gather for the word. It's not okay to gather in peaceful protest. It's not okay to gather in any other place or any other way. You can gather and destroy your community and speak vile things. And And there's nothing wrong. You don't have to wear a mask. You don't have to social distance, but in anything else, you have to.
Well,
Come on,
and this
folks.
happened in the state of Texas. This was Sunday before, so the week before the requirement to wear masks in Texas, that there was a rally at the state capitol in Austin, and it was about the very thing about wearing masks. And because in Austin they've been a little bit more draconian because they're a very liberal city.
Austin's the liberal place.
And so they gathered and they had this protest, and it was basically it wasn't really so much the protest as the demonstration about let's speak the truth about the CV, the Chinese virus. And so they gathered, and then they were going to march over to they're at the Capitol. They're going to march over to the governor's mansion, and the state police and they called out the National Guard and the state police. And they were not violent. They were just simply making a point, but they were shut down. They couldn't protest. They couldn't march. But Austin has been lit on fire because Antifa and Black Lives Matter and all that. And that was okay. And they let that happen and let those businesses be destroyed. And they let those lives, many people hurt. They let that happen. Yeah. And this is a peaceful demonstration where they're just saying, guys, we're not going to take your pseudoscience. We're not going to let that rule our lives. And yet they were the ones that were shut down. And they said, well, okay, we're going to comply because we're not that type of people like the Black Lives Matter people that are out there maiming and killing people and destroying property.
Well, many clothing stores aren't allowed to open because they're not essentials, but tattoo parlors are essential.
Yeah, everybody's essential, and every job is essential. Because that's what keeps your livelihood going.
That's right.
And folks, if you're listening, every job and every business is essential, and every congregation is essential. Right. Well, that's we just sort of slid right into the news.
I see it. It's got to happen. It's got to happen. It's who we are. So nice to see John's face.
Thank you for joining your show.
And there's the couple of things right there on the top. Yep. What do they call it? The Craig cover or Craig?
They got me. I didn't say anything. Yes, I didn't say anything about it. So
what do you call it? The Craig. I forgot now. Craig.
I didn't talk about John. So.
Yeah. All right.
Well,
get on out of here.
There's a certain tradition within the Craig men that I'm maintaining.
Well, I never really have ever trusted anybody with two first names anyway. So, it's one of those things.
I have 3 first names.
I don't doubt you. I didn't want to bring that up because that's even worse.
John Lee Craig.
Yeah, see, well, now it's funny because actually your middle name is mostly used as a last name. And so when you start mixing these names up, I think there is an actual Torah law against doing that. But yet we're going to leave it alone, John. We're just going to leave it alone. And
well, I just want you to know that there are a lot of people. The last name's Lee, but I do not have any Asian blood in me. I have a lot of other mixed blood, but I'm
okay.
Okay, just so you know.
Well, if you don't mind leaving, so we can talk about you. Or at least I will. There we go. All right. So it was really nice having John here with us today. So.
See you guys.
All righty then.
Love you, man. Big time.
Maybe it's time to go to our Torah portion. What do you think?
Oh, very good. Hey, yeah. Sure. But, sure. Pincus. Let's get on to Pincus. That's what we want to do. Yeah, buddy. Okay.
The zealousness for Yah. Yeah. Anyway.
Okay, so we'll be back here in just a second.
All right. So this week we are in Pincus, and we know that that's about a guy who was zealous for Yahweh and set things right. But I want to do a comparison with Pincus. And here's the setting. We have the second generation of Israelites, and they're in the desert, and they've done what their parents couldn't do, and they're finally seating, saying, God, everything, you're in control. You're driving this place. We trust you completely. And what happens? Well, there's things that happen. We have Baal Peor. So first, Israel began to commit harlotry with the daughters of Moab, and these women called Israel to sacrifice to their gods, and then the people ate, and they bowed down to their gods, and that's exactly what Balaam had wanted to happen, and Israel fell for it, hook, line, and sinker. But that should remind us of something, and this is where I want to do my comparison. Where else do we see worship and bowing down and sacrifice, etc., a feast, so to speak? Well, it wasn't too long ago that we studied it's the sin of the golden calf. And I want to look at those side by side because they're very similar. Well, you may say, well, one is sexual and one is not, but the term that's used for rise, the term that's used here, lesek, is actually often has a sexual connotation to it. And so after the people of Israel built the calf, they sacrificed their burnt offerings, their peace offerings, they sat down to eat and drink, and then they rose. And the Torah often uses that term for sexual activity, letzach. Anyway, so you can look at Rashi and Joseph, and there's a lot more explanation on that, but I want to get right into it because both stories in Baal Peor and the golden calf, they are stories of idolatry. And they involve what? They involve worship. They involve a sacrifice. They involve a feast. And they have this link between idolatry and sexual promiscuity. So, and what does Yahweh say in Exodus 34:15? He says, don't forge a covenant with other nations because you'll stray after their gods and the people will call you and you'll eat of their offerings. And that's exactly what's going on in Baal Peor, even though we were warned about it at the golden calf. Yeah, Yahweh warns about us at the golden calf, and yet we did it anyway. And so these stories are related in part because in the golden calf, idolatry led to promiscuity, but in Baal Peor, it's interesting that promiscuity led to idolatry. That order is reversed. And with that, what is the Torah? The Torah is actually telling us that promiscuity and idolatry are fundamentally expressions of what? The very same thing. Because we see the linking of these stories. Think about that. Idolatry and sexual promiscuity. Well, I know even in the Hebrew roots movement, people sometimes, in every movement, those that call themselves believers or those people of faith and Christians, sometimes sexual sin is big. It's just something that happens, and it's not right. It's still a sin, but it's interesting that idolatry and sexual promiscuity are linked, because what is that? Activity like that is actually a tool. That intimacy is supposed to build a deep and real and loving relationship. And those that choose to be involved for just pleasure or for the moment or whatever it is, they've sort of totally obscured what it's all about. They've obscured the intimacy with Yahweh even. So, and what's at the core of of idolatry? Idolatry takes the worship, the very thing that's supposed to be used to build that intimacy with our loving Yahweh, with our loving God, that relationship, and it's twisting it. And so we see how these idolatry and this intimacy issue, they go this promiscuity issue, they're hand in hand, and they're sort of the same thing, because polytheistic worship is not about creating a deep, intimate relationship. It's about pleasing the God you're worshiping, whether it's your job or your power or the man or the woman you're with or yourself or whatever it may be. So this promiscuity is meant to be a tool, or is taking what is meant to be beautiful between you and God, that intimacy, and it's using it for selfish, superficial pleasure. Idolatry and sexual promiscuity go hand in hand. And so this idolater and the adulterer, that you deceive yourself into thinking that you can have your cake and you can eat it too. So, you abuse the tools that bring you to intimacy with Yahweh. And when you remove the relationship, when you cheapen what God's tried to do with it, you cheapen what he's made beautiful. And that's why we see Pincus, and the sin of Baal Peor, how we see him stop the sexual activity to stop the plague. We might think, well, it would have made more sense for Pincus to impale someone worship Baal Peor. But when you link these two stories together, no, actually it makes sense for him to do what he did, because they're really two. The golden calf and Baal Peor are two expressions of the same thing. And remember, I said that word lasak often means concerns sexual activity, and you see that in both. So in doing what Pincus did in impaling the couple, he redeems that intimacy, that perversion of what was done, that perversion, the potential for that intimacy to be used and sacrificed in worship. He redeems that. He's saying, no, this is not going to be allowed. We worship but one God, and it is Yahweh himself. And maybe that's what the Torah wants us to learn in the parallels of the two stories, because whichever comes first, promiscuity or adultery, or idolatry and promiscuity, it has that propensity to take something that's meant to create intimacy and devalue it. And that's what we do, folks. We devalue it. So they really go hand in hand. And so we need to see, where do we struggle? Because do we fail to recognize God where he's supposed to be? Do we give intimacy to something else, that time and that other relationship, whatever it is, and we don't give that intimacy to Yahweh? If so, have we made an idol of that thing? And that idol and that sexual intimacy go hand in hand. The sin of the golden calf and Baal Peor, they each happen right after a major turning point in the relationship, the nation's relationship with Yahweh. And that should teach us something too, because we can come to him, but then we have to work on maintaining that relationship. Or any relationship takes time. It takes effort. It takes conversation. And maybe that's where we struggle. We come to him. Do we maintain that time? Do we tithe of our time? Because guess what? Malachi 3:10 is not just about the tithe. It's about your time too. Do we steal something from him, something from Yahweh, and keep it and hold it close to us, or give it to something else? If we were honest, we'd have to say yes. So that means we're entering into that very same sin in a way. So because we have got to put effort into maintaining our relationship with him. Baal Peor and the golden calf, I think we got to look at them together, and we can understand holiness and intimacy and idolatry and promiscuity. And that's what I have to say for today.
It's I don't know exactly where I've heard it, but because I listen to so many different things and pick and choose and separate the wheat from the chaff, but I have heard, statistics, I guess. Where do they get these? Who do they talk to? I don't know. But when the quarantine happened, they took like 6 weeks of quarantine, and the churches were shut down. And who was it that came back with statistics that within 6 weeks of not going to church, men and women both were now turning to pornography and all kinds of different things, just simply because they weren't gathering together and didn't have the support, and wasn't just pornography, but a lot of other things, but mostly pornography, because that's the number one thing that, and it's not just men anymore,
No,
by the way, and all this kind of thing. It really does come down to what you value. You're 100% right, and it's where do we focus. Interesting word. I heard this about 427 times yesterday. We had our Keeping Focus conference, but it's keeping that focus instead of letting things go awry. And do we really need the interaction so much that we can't get separated from other people without separating ourselves from God? You see what I'm saying? I don't remember where I got the statistics. I don't remember who said it. I don't remember the validation of it or whatever like that. But I don't doubt it. I just really don't doubt it. And it's too bad that we don't have enough confidence in ourselves to keep that integrity up, to keep the integrity between us and God without having to have a support system there. But, different people have different weaknesses. Everybody's different. I can't speak for someone else. I can only speak for myself, but it's a sad, sad day, in this sense. And I mean, what you were saying is real interesting, because I think it's one of those subjects that is not brought out enough. Maybe we're scared to talk about it because it might spark something in somebody that stays away from it because they have a weakness. I've thought about this is that sometimes you don't talk about things because maybe the people that hear these things have a weakness towards that, and by bringing it up and talking about it, it brings it to mind. I used to have a friend that he had a big weakness towards pornography, and he fought it off and did real well. And this is an extremely private thing, so you don't really ever know. But towards his testimony, he was constantly, claiming that this was all in his past. But one of the biggest things he would say is that sin is only a click away. My weakness is only a click away, and it's true, because on the internet now, it makes no difference. Within 1, 2, or 3 clicks, you can now be full force into any pornography that you want to be into, and it's a heavy weakness. And once again, getting heavier in time. It's not just men. It's becoming almost as equal with women.
I agree. I still call, and for years, pretty much since we've had the congregation, I've always said, the novels that so many women read, they're porn.
Oh yeah, by far. If it puts the thought up here, even if it's just in the imagination, doesn't necessarily mean it has to be in your eyes.
But let's look at movies today. What is normal?
I'm with you.
Movies today would have been considered pornography.
I'm with you.
Ago.
Yeah, I mean,
and that's in almost everything that's there. So you look around, the the billboards that are up along the guys. I mean, that is, it's everywhere. It is everywhere. So, but so is the sexual sin. because it's far beyond pornography. I mean, it's almost kids feel pressure if they remain pure, purity, that they're ridiculed. I've heard that even on some of they have, we don't have the main channels, but on some of those channels, they have programs where you meet, relationship programs.
Right.
And I'll just give you an example. It's Married at First Sight. Okay. They have somebody there that's a virgin and they're like 30 something years old. And it made others wonder, would you really want a partner that was a virgin? Because that means there's something wrong. There's something wrong with them. And you really want to have that sexual experience, lots of it, before you ever get married. And they almost demonized, well, not almost, they did demonize the person that's maintained purity. And that's the way, isn't that exactly what we've been saying? Even really the whole good is bad and bad is good. Evil, it's exactly what the word said in that day, in that hour, and that's where we are. And it's idolatry. If it feels good, do it. Isn't that the motto? So if it feels good, do it, then it's removed any kind of sin factor in some people's mind. And if you're not in congregation, there's something that happens when you attend a congregation. If you're dealing with so-called, the world would say sillily demons, but even that kind of stuff, spiritual junk, as well as sin in your life, if you're attending a congregation, if you haven't gotten rid of it, it still keeps it at bay. And that's why we see what you said, Mark. It's coming out when people stopped gathering for the congregation. In the congregation, that kind of stuff manifested. It came to the surface because nothing was holding it at bay. And so if you can remove, I'm taking up your time. If they can remove our congregational worship, our congregational setting, then they can have a whole bunch of, the beast returns inside of us and we're led by the beast instead of by the Spirit. And then we go play for the other team.
It's exactly right. You're right there. I'm actually taking notes here for our segment here. And because this is really good. I don't know how to spell. That's my deal. No, it's just not talked about. Literally, there's so many other issues, yet this is a number one issue. Where are the pinkuses?
Where are they?
Yeah, where are they? Kind of what we're doing here to a very minute extent is, bringing it up and talking about it, period, is a minute little pinkus, but at least we're doing it. And it's interesting. I don't think I've ever heard anybody teach it that way, though, the way that you just brought it up. And you're always unique, very unique in things that you
always tell me that.
You are, though.
That's good. That's what I want to be. Everybody needs to be who they are. They don't need to copy somebody else. So,
well, let's take it right on into the Brit Hadashah here with John 2:13 to 22. Yeshua cleanses the temple. Of course, this is where he goes into the temple and finds those who are selling oxen and sheep and pigeons and the money changers, and making a whip of cords. He drives them out of the temple with the sheep and oxen, and then he pours out the coins of the money chambers and overturns their tables. He tells those who sold the pigeons, "Take these things away. Do not make my Father's house a house of trade." His disciples remembers that it was written, "Zeal for your house will consume me," speaking of Yeshua. And then the Jews said to him, and of course this is in a different verse, kind of separated. I'm not so sure that it's all a part of this. They're saying this to him because of what he did there, but yeah, I guess it just fits, editing there in the Brit Hadashah. The Jews say to him, "What sign do you show us for doing these things?" And Yeshua says, "Destroy this temple, and in 3 days I'll raise it up again." The blah blah blah. It says it's taken 46 years to build a temple. He's actually speaking of the temple of his body, and so my deal was that of him speaking in parables. And so many of the parables that he spoke, they just didn't understand. Even his disciples really just didn't understand. And it makes me bring it into today's perspective, even with what we just talked about. You're talking about Pincus and what he did, why he did, the promiscuity, that type of thing. Being very clear when we teach these days, we try to be as clear about the subject and not really so much give examples except examples out of the Torah. And we don't speak in parables, so to say, as much like as Yeshua. It's almost as though he planned on doing it. And so many times I forget, why do you do that? Why wasn't he clearer both to the Pharisees, the leaders of the time, and to his disciples? And I looked it up, Matthew 13, 10 is where the disciples came to him and says, "Why do you speak to the people in parables?" And he replied, "Because the knowledge of the secrets of the kingdom of heaven," Yeshua says, "has been given to you, but not to them. Whoever has will be given more, and they will have an abundance. Whoever does not have, even what they have will be taken from them. This is why I speak to them in parables." And he goes on with, "Though seeing, they do not see. Though hearing, they do not hear or understand. In them is full of the prophecy of Isaiah. You will be ever hearing, but never understanding. You will be ever seeing, but never perceiving. For this people's heart has become calloused. They hardly hear with their ears, and they have closed their eyes. Otherwise, they might see with their eyes, hear with their ears, understand with their hearts, and turn, and I would heal them. But blessed are your eyes because you see, and your ears because they hear. For truly I tell you, many prophets and righteous people long to see what you see, but did not see it, and to hear what you hear, but did not hear it." And then he goes on to the parable of the sower. And it makes me wonder whether or not people are mixing so much of the world with so much of the teaching they get that they have become callous to the point where they don't know the difference between, and it's a mixture into the point where they can't discern where that gray area is. And many times I've brought up the subject of the levels of sin. In other words, in our society, if you shoplift, it's one, you get one kind of, I can't think of the word. You get convicted of this, and then if you do murder, you get a different conviction of that. And in our minds, in people's minds that don't saturate themselves with the word of God and not the world. In other words, we are in the world, not of the world. If we're doing so much mixture, do we become so callous that we can't tell the difference? And that's why they shut down the churches for 6 weeks. And the people, it's not that they've lost the word of God, but did they ever have the real word of God? As Yeshua says, you will be ever hearing but never understanding. You will be ever seeing but never perceiving. The people's hearts have become callous. They hardly hear with their ears and their eyes. So to me, and then he says, and turn and I will heal them. But you have to turn. You have to literally saturate yourself with the world of God, not the world outside of God. And there's so much to it, but I just can't. I can't fathom that. I guess I'm so far from. It's not that. Yeah, like I watch the movies. Yeah, like I go out into the world. Yeah, but I really don't. I am to the point where I don't know of mixtures anymore. And so they shut down the churches for 6 weeks. Ain't no difference to me. I mean, I'm still serving God. It's one of the reasons I own the Messianic Lamb Network. It's ever before my face. I can't let it get out of my face. It has to be ever before my wife and I. And here it is. So anyway, that's what I have for that.
Well, and I love your point too. You choose, because it's still a choice, Mark. You choose
Sure.
whether you're in congregational setting or not to have his word, whether it's given through others or whether it's right, but it's ever before your face. Therefore, you're not going to stray to the right or the left, but you're going to maintain. And that's the difference. Most of the world has, oh, this is going to be bad, but God in a box, and you only take him out on Sunday or Saturday. And therefore, when that day is not, and you only do it while you're meeting with other people. And when you're through meeting with other people, you put him back in the box and you'll pull him out the next week or next week. So Yahweh or God or Jesus or Yeshua remains packed away until the time you come together. And unfortunately, that is why we have what you were saying was, it is the glory of God to conceal a matter. It's the honor of kings to search it out. If we are kings and priests, we should be searching it out going into the deep waters. It's not enough that the water cover my ankles. It's not enough that the water cover my knees. I want to be completely saturated. And that desire is not there because the world's pull is so great. And that goes back with what we've been saying. They drink the Kool-Aid, they mix idolatry and you said you don't even understand mixture, not literally, but because you don't live it out. But in reality, that's not the case with most of the world. And, and thus we see the money changers in the house of Yahweh. We see people hearing but not truly understanding the depths of the word. And because of that, they're directionless, or they follow a direction that someone else leads instead of God. So,
well, you stop and think too. I was looking back at so the Jews said to him, and we're probably understanding being the leaders, the Sadducees, the people in authority, what sign do you show us for doing these things? And he gives them a parable. He won't even tell them straight out. In other words, kill me and I'll raise my body up again in 3 days. He doesn't say that. He speaks to them in a parable just in their answer, simply because they're going to, if he told them clearly, they would take that and destroy it. They would take that and make it something that it's not, simply because they don't have the words of God in them. The world is supposed to bow down to them and be them instead of them bowing down to God. And I think the reason that he said that his disciples have, you guys have the word of God. You have these things in you, and I speak to you clearly because you do understand these things. But yet, some things he didn't. So I don't know. It's interesting that we just have to keep it ever before our face.
Ever before our face. Key. Very key.
Pincus did.
Ever before his face. And that's why the zealousness of Yahweh was in him and upon him. The image of Yahweh was so much greater than the image of man, or the pressure of man, or the government around him, so to speak, that he acted upon what Yah's word said instead of the traditions and the pressure of society.
Right. Bingo.
It's good, good, good. Well, you know what? I think it's been a great program today. I think we've had a lot of fun.
Good.
Got some serious stuff, and I've enjoyed it.
Good. We had our fourth Keeping Focus and Distracting Times conference yesterday, and I just want to let everybody know that the archives of that will be up today. They can, this afternoon, they can go and check that out. And if they missed it, I've already had a couple of people say they missed specific teachings they want to hear, and Abigail O'Hare, Milena Weinberg, and Dr. Robin Gould spoke yesterday, and each one of their individual archives will be up. So also we have a, let me look here what this is. It is a virtual, hold up, where am I at here? It's a virtual event coming up in 2 weeks with Valerie Moody, Hearing the Voice of God. Sherry Flanagan is coming up with all these virtual events, and I'm letting her. So we got a lot of good things coming up, and some changes being made in the Lamb Network here in about a month that I think we're expanding and expounding quite heavily, and it starts within about a month. So stay tuned, especially this coming Thursday morning. We have a real special thing happening with Sandi with the next chapter. I'm gonna let you tell us what we're doing on the next chapter this Thursday.
Well, this Thursday we are going to get a little bit personal. We are going to. Are we still going there?
Yeah, personal.
We're getting a little bit personal. We are each going to give forth an instance in our life of where we put God in a box and how it has affected us, or how we reacted, or how we recognized it. It's up to everybody how they want to say it. But the whole program is going to be the four of us giving forth a testimony of how that worked in our lives and what happened. And so you want to hear, because we're going to get, not only we're going to get personal, but we know when people do that and we are able to give the testimony of something that we experienced, other people can relate to it. And then you get to know us better, and maybe we get to know ourselves better too. And so you don't want to miss the next chapter this Thursday at 8:45 a.m. Central Time, 9:45, of course, Eastern. And in fact, call your friends, let everybody know, set it on your schedule, and I think you're going to enjoy it.
Oh, when you said we were going to get personal, it kind of scared me. I thought maybe we were all going to be like within 6 feet of each other without masks or something. And
how great? Do you know how great it would be if the four of us were all in one room together? It would be so awesome.
Within 6 feet of each other without masks?
Oh yeah,
Oh,
we'll be
no,
within 1 foot of each other, maybe 2.
no, it'll never happen. No.
I'm never going to say never because you never know.
Oh, well, I talk behind people's backs. So
There's always a possibility this Sukkot, the 4 of us could be together. And if we would be together, we need to do a skit too.
we do. We do. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
But it would have to be a social distancing skit. So
No social distancing. None.
none?
I'm opposed.
Are you saying that at your Sukkot that we're actually going to be able to hug each other?
I haven't stopped that. And absolutely.
Okay, well,
That's one thing I loved when I went there. My uncle, my dad's youngest brother,
uh-huh.
he is so much on the same page as us. And it was just refreshing to hear that from family that doesn't do all this. And,
Yeah.
you know, because I never know. And
Right.
anyway,
Well,
he was.
yeah, it's the same thing with my daughter and her family here. You know, they've been here for a week. They're going to be here for another week. And it's like, we don't even, you know, we talk every once in a while, but we're so far apart and everything. And then we get together and it's like, we all feel exactly the same way. So it's kind of like, I don't know. It's just, surely there are more of us out there.
There are. We just need to let our voice be known.
That's right. All right. Well,
anyway, well, thank you for joining us here today on Let Us Reason Together. And hey, there's a lot of other great programming coming up today, and you want to stay tuned for all of it. And of course, let us know about the Sukkot. Oh, and I didn't mention, if there is an inmate or somebody that's in the prison system that you know, and you think they might be interested in receiving material and ministry from Life of Worship, let us know. But I also have them drop me a line, but I'll need to know their number and their address, et cetera, et cetera. But it's real important because I don't want you to think that they'd be interested. I want to know that they're interested. That's why I like to hear from them. But if they are, we'll put them in the ministries, in our prison ministry stuff, and get them material and et cetera, et cetera. So we are there. The prison ministry at Life of Worship is growing every week, and it's amazing. And I think lives are being changed and touched, and that's what it's all about. So,
and everybody be sure and wear your mask. You know.
Yeah. Sign up for Sukkot too. Sign up for Sukkot. Join us for Sukkot. I need to hear. So there's some people out there that want to be with Life of Worship. Anyway, that's enough for me.
Amen.
Thanks for joining us. Until next time, shalom.
We are richly blessed to bring you what we believe is the fullest, most diverse, yet up-to-date progressive teachings, discussion, and prayer programming you can find anywhere on this planet. Be sure to take the tour of the MessianicLambRadio.com website. I'm Susan Hoogie, thanking you for joining us on the Messianic Lamb Video Network.